In 1028, a boy was born to a world of shifting alliances, treacherous nobles, and rival claimants to a crown. William, Duke of Normandy, would rise from an uncertain heir to the feared and respected King of England, forever altering the course of history. From a childhood marked by danger and exile, to a life of cunning strategy, brutal battles, and calculated diplomacy, William's journey was one of ambition, resilience, and unyielding vision. He transformed England, reshaped the aristocracy, and laid the foundation for a monarchy that would dominate Europe for centuries. This is the story of a man whose conquest changed a nation, a culture, and a dynasty where every choice, every battle, and every alliance carried the weight of empires. William was born in 1028, in Falaise, Normandy, to Robert I, Duke of Normandy, and Herleva, a woman of humble origins whose beauty and intelligence had captivated the Duke. His birth, however, was shadowed by uncertainty. As an illegitimate child in a feudal society that prized the legitimate lineage, William faced immediate challenges. Many nobles questioned his right to inherit the duchy, and from the start, dangers seemed to accompany his life. Yet even as a boy, he displayed an extraordinary combination of intelligence, determination, and political instinct that would later define his reign. Normandy was a land of castles, rivers, and forests, a patchwork of rival lords whose loyalty could shift with the wind. Young William's early years were marked by instability and frequent threats. At just 7 years old, he became Duke of Normandy after his father's death, inheriting a duchy racked by rebellion. Noble factions saw his youth as an opportunity to seize power, leading to a period of constant plotting, assassination attempts, and civil strife. William learned early that survival required not only courage, but strategic alliances, cunning diplomacy, and the ability to inspire loyalty in those around him. Despite the dangers, William's upbringing included careful instruction in military strategy, governance, and feudal law. Advisors and loyal knights served as mentors, teaching him the art of leadership and the brutal realities of power. The young Duke honed skills in horseback riding, swordsmanship, and tactical planning, preparing for the day he would assert his authority over a fractious nobility. These lessons, often learned through harsh experience, forged in William a combination of fearlessness and pragmatism that would later intimidate both allies and enemies. Political marriages and alliances shaped William's early years as much as battles. He observed his mother Herleva navigate complex court intrigues, understanding the importance of diplomacy, family loyalty, and social networks. Her influence taught him that power was not only wielded with sword and shield, but also through persuasion, negotiation, and perception. The network of alliances he would later create through marriage, rewards, and political favors was rooted in lessons learned in his youth. By adolescence, William had survived multiple assassination attempts and uprisings. Each threat strengthened his resolve and reputation. Norman lords, once dismissive of his illegitimacy, began to recognize his intelligence, decisiveness, and ability to maintain order. William's charisma and tactical skill allowed him to consolidate power in Normandy, transforming a precarious duchy into a strong, centralized domain under his rule. William's formative years were also shaped by the culture of feudal Europe. Knights, castles, and chivalric ideals dominated the landscape. Military skill, personal bravery, and loyalty to one's liege were the currency of power. William internalized these values while cultivating a ruthless pragmatism, understanding that mercy and brutality were both tools to be wielded when necessary. His reputation as a fearsome leader grew, and tales of his strategic genius and decisiveness spread across Normandy. By the time he reached adulthood, William had faced more peril than most would in a lifetime. He had survived noble conspiracies, foreign threats, and internal rebellions, emerging as a shrewd, calculating, and ambitious ruler. His experiences instilled a belief that destiny favored the bold and prepared him for the monumental challenges that awaited: the conquest of England, the reshaping of society, and the establishment of a dynasty that would endure for centuries. William's early life was defined by the interplay of vulnerability and ambition. His illegitimacy, the fragility of his duchy, and the constant threat of rebellion forced him to develop skills in leadership, strategy, and alliance. These formative experiences created a ruler who was as politically astute as he was, militarily formidable, man capable of shaping the destiny of nations and leaving an indelible mark on European history. By the end of Part 1, William had survived a perilous childhood, asserted authority over a divided Normandy, and demonstrated the combination of cunning, courage, and ruthlessness that would make him one of history's most formidable conquerors. He was no longer a vulnerable boy in a dangerous world. He was a young duke poised to challenge kings, reshape England, and redefine the scope of medieval power. By the late 1040s, William had moved beyond the vulnerability of his childhood and begun to assert control over Normandy. His youth had been perilous, with rival lords attempting to undermine his rule. Yet these early trials honed his political instincts. William learned to balance diplomacy with force, rewarding loyalty while punishing treachery. Every alliance, marriage, negotiation, and military action was carefully calculated to strengthen his authority and expand his influence. Normandy, once fractured, began to coalesce under the rule of a duke whose intelligence and resolve could command respect and fear in equal measure. William's consolidation of power relied heavily on strategic marriages and alliances. He carefully selected wives for himself and arranged marriages for his supporters, binding powerful families to his cause. The importance of family ties, loyalty, and mutual interest became a cornerstone of his political philosophy. William understood that the unity of Normandy depended not only on military might, but on the creation of a web of alliances that could withstand internal dissension and external threats. Military readiness was another priority. William reinforced fortifications, trained his knights rigorously, and maintained a network of loyal retainers capable of rapid mobilization. Castles across Normandy were not merely defensive structures. They were symbols of authority, centers of administration, and staging points for military campaigns. William's presence in Normandy was both strategic and psychological. He projected strength while cultivating loyalty, ensuring that no rebel lord could challenge his rule without significant risk. Diplomacy extended beyond Normandy's borders. William cultivated relations with neighboring regions, including Brittany, Flanders, and France. While the French king technically claimed sovereignty over Normandy, William navigated a careful balance of deference and independence. He paid homage when necessary but pursued his own policies and military actions, establishing Normandy as a powerful and semi-autonomous duchy. These maneuvers showcased his ability to operate within the complex web of medieval European politics, combining subtlety with decisiveness. In the 1050s, William's reputation as a shrewd leader and formidable warrior grew. Nobles who had once doubted him recognized his capability, while enemies learned that rebellion carried a heavy price. Tales of his military campaigns, often ruthless in their execution, spread through Normandy and beyond. William was not merely a duke. He was a rising power, a leader capable of altering the balance of authority in Western Europe. Meanwhile, William's personal and domestic life reinforced his political strategy. His marriage to Matilda of Flanders, a union that produced heirs and strengthened ties with a powerful neighbor, exemplified his use of personal relationships to secure political advantage. Matilda became a trusted partner in governance, supporting the duke's authority while managing domestic affairs, symbolizing the intertwining of family and statecraft that would characterize William's reign. By carefully navigating rebellion, alliance, and diplomacy, William laid the groundwork for ambitions that extended beyond Normandy. He was acutely aware of the precarious claim to the English throne. Edward the Confessor, the childless king of England, had reportedly promised William's succession, but the English nobility and foreign interests complicated the matter. William began to cultivate relationships, gather intelligence, and assert his claims subtly, understanding that military prowess alone would not suffice. Legitimacy, support, and careful planning were essential. Administrative reforms also strengthened William's duchy. He established a network of officials responsible for taxation, justice, and military logistics. Normandy's infrastructure became more organized, and William's presence enforced uniformity and accountability. These measures enhanced efficiency, increased revenue, and allowed him to mobilize resources for future campaigns. The duchy became a model of governance and military readiness, reflecting William's foresight and strategic acumen. By the end of this period, William had transformed Normandy from a fragmented, unstable region into a powerful and centralized duchy under his command. His combination of diplomacy, Military skill and calculated ruthlessness ensured that rebellion was rare and loyalty became a valued asset. By the early 1060s, William's focus shifted from consolidating Normandy to securing a claim to the English throne. Edward the Confessor, the aging King of England, had no heir, and the succession was unclear. England was a land of divided loyalties, where powerful earls wielded vast authority, and the Wittende Council of Nobles played a decisive role in selecting a monarch. William, having been promised succession according to some sources, knew that a claim alone would not suffice. He would need legitimacy, strategic planning, and military preparedness to turn aspiration into reality. The death of Edward in January 1066 set the stage for a dramatic power struggle. Harold Godwinson, a powerful English earl, seized the crown, garnering support from the Witan. William recognized the challenge immediately. Harold's coronation threatened not only William's claim but the prestige and authority of the Norman duchy he had painstakingly strengthened. Normandy could not remain neutral. William's vision demanded action. William embarked on a campaign to legitimize his claim. He marshaled support from the Pope, securing a papal banner that signaled the moral and spiritual authority of his endeavor. The backing of the Church elevated the conflict from a political dispute to a crusade of sorts, framing William's ambition as divinely sanctioned. This not only bolstered morale among his troops, but also intimidated potential opposition by invoking religious legitimacy. Simultaneously, William gathered a formidable army of knights, infantry, and mercenaries from Normandy, France, and neighboring regions. Logistics were meticulously planned. Ships were built, supplies stockpiled, and strategies rehearsed. William's reputation as a military tactician inspired loyalty and fear in equal measure. His forces were trained to operate cohesively, blending cavalry charges with archery and infantry. Formason integrated approach that reflected the lessons of his early years in Normandy. William's diplomatic efforts extended to England as well. He sought to exploit divisions among the English nobility, sending envoys to test loyalty, gauge resistance, and identify potential allies. Normandy's intelligence network provided information about fortifications, troop movements, and political sentiment. William's meticulous preparation demonstrated his understanding that conquest required more than brute force. It demanded foresight, strategy, and the careful orchestration of military, political, and psychological factors. The summer of 1066 brought to major threats. Harold Godwinson's consolidation of power in England and the approach of external challengers, including Harold Hardrada of Norway. William's advisors urged caution, but the Duke of Normandy remained resolute. Timing was critical. Any delay could allow Harold to fortify his rule and rally support. William demonstrated patience, using every week to train his forces, coordinate naval transport, and ensure the loyalty of vassals and mercenaries. News of Hardrada's invasion in September 1066 temporarily altered the English balance of power. Harold Godwinson marched north to confront the Norwegian king, winning the Battle of Stamford Bridge in a hard-fought victory. This trump, however, left Harold's forces exhausted and vulnerable a situation William had anticipated. He knew that the English army, having just fought a major battle, would be less prepared to repel a well-organized Norman invasion. William's preparation was meticulous and multifaceted. The fleet, carefully constructed over months, carried horses, soldiers, and supplies across the English Channel. Every detail from tide schedules to weather conditions was monitored. William personally inspected the ships and troops, ensuring readiness and cohesion. His leadership instilled confidence and loyalty in his forces. reinforcing the belief that their commander's strategic genius would secure victory. By mid-September, the Norman fleet crossed the Channel, landing at Pevensey in southern England. William's forces quickly established a secure foothold, constructing fortifications and preparing for the inevitable confrontation with Harold's army. The stage was set for a battle that would determine the future of England and the shape of medieval Europe. William's vision, forged in the crucible of Norman politics and warfare, was about to collide with the realities of English resistance and the ambitions of rival claims. As the Norman army encamped, William remained a vigilant and commanding presence. Reports from scouts, local informants, and allied nobles informed every tactical decision. The Duke demonstrated an acute awareness of both geography and psychology, positioning his forces to exploit weaknesses in the English defense. His approach reflected a lifetime of preparation, intelligence gathering, military discipline, and strategic foresight that had been honed from childhood through the consolidation of Normandy. The events leading to the Battle of Hastings in October 1066 showcased William's combination of ambition, preparation, and adaptability. He understood the stakes. Victory would crown him King of England, reshape the English nobility, and establish a dynasty whose influence would last for centuries. Failure, however, would endanger not only his claim, but the stability and prestige of Normandy itself. William's careful orchestration of political, military, and religious support exemplified the qualities that had made him a formidable leader since his youth: intelligence, ruthlessness, and unwavering resolve. By the end of Part 3, William stood poised to strike, his claim to England strengthened by preparation, diplomacy, and strategic brilliance. On October 14, 1066, the fate of England hung in the balance. William, Duke of Normandy, stood at the head of a disciplined, well-prepared army on the slopes near Hastings. Opposite him, King Harold Godwinson marshaled his exhausted but resolute forces. Having just defeated Harold Hardrada in the north, the English army held the high ground, shielded by a formidable defensive position and motivated by loyalty to their king and homeland. Yet William's strategic acumen, meticulously developed over decades, would soon turn the tide of history. The battle began with an intense exchange of arrows, as Norman archers sought to disrupt the English shield wall. William's forces were disciplined, coordinating infantry, cavalry, and archery in complex maneuvers designed to weaken the enemy over time. Feigned retreats, a tactic William had carefully planned, lured portions of Harold's army into vulnerable positions. These calculated deceptions exploited the rigidity of the English formation and demonstrated William's mastery of battlefield psychology. As the sun rose higher, the clash of steel and cries of warriors filled the air. William's cavalry struck decisively, while infantry advanced with relentless pressure. The Normans demonstrated adaptability, shifting tactics in response to battlefield developments. William himself maintained a commanding presence, rallying troops, coordinating attacks, and ensuring cohesion among diverse contingents drawn from Normandy, Britain, and other regions. His leadership inspired confidence and discipline, reinforcing the morale of his men even as casualties mounted. Hours of brutal combat wore down the English defenders. William's strategy of attrition, combined with calculated flanking maneuvers, began to fracture the shield wall. Archers and cavalry coordinated to create gaps, and Norman knights exploited these breaches with devastating effect. The battlefield became a test of endurance, courage, and tactical ingenuity, with William's careful planning ultimately giving the Normans the advantage. The turning point came when Harold was struck down, likely by an arrow to the eye. His death demoralized the English army, leading to the collapse of organized resistance. Norman forces pressed the advantage, pursuing fleeing soldiers and securing key positions. By nightfall, William had emerged victorious, his claim to the English throne secured through a combination of preparation, strategy, and personal leadership. The Battle of Hastings would be remembered not only for its immediate impact, but as a turning point in English and European history. In the aftermath of victory, William faced the monumental task of consolidating his new kingdom. England was a land of diverse loyalties, and resistance persisted among powerful earls, local lords, and communities wary of Norman rule. William's approach combined military strength with strategic clemency. He conducted a campaign of fortifications, building castles to project authority, secure key territories, and suppress uprisings. At the same time, he rewarded allies and loyal subjects, establishing a new aristocracy that blended Norman and English interests. The introduction of the feudal system marked a profound transformation. William redistributed land to his Norman followers, ensuring loyalty while displacing rebellious English nobles. This reshaping of land ownership consolidated power in the hands of those who owed allegiance directly to the king, strengthening the central authority and creating a hierarchy that would endure for generations. Castles, administrative centers, and fortified towns became symbols of Norman dominance and tools of governance. William's consolidation extended beyond military and political measures. He implemented systems of taxation, justice, and administration that reinforced his authority. The Domesday Survey, completed later in his reign, exemplified his commitment to governance. It catalogued landholdings, resources, and obligations, allowing the crown to assess wealth, ensure compliance, and govern effectively. These measures demonstrated William's understanding that conquest was only the first step. Lasting control required organization, information, and the projection of authority throughout the realm. The cultural impact of Norman rule was equally significant. French-speaking nobles brought new administrative practices, legal systems, and architectural styles, transforming English society. The fusion of Anglo-Saxon traditions with Norman innovations created a unique cultural and political landscape, reflecting William's ability to impose order while adapting to local conditions. The monarchy became the central authority, linking disparate regions through loyalty, governance, and shared identity. By the end of Part 4, William had not only secured England through the decisive victory at Hastings, but had begun the complex process of integrating Norman and English societies. His triumph demonstrated a combination of military genius, political foresight, and personal leadership that would define his reign. William was now King of England, a conqueror whose vision, ruthlessness, and strategic skill would shape the nation for centuries. With the crown secured, William faced the immense challenge of ruling a kingdom that had just been conquered. England was a land fractured by war, resentment, and the remnants of the old Anglo-Saxon aristocracy. To establish lasting authority, William employed a combination of military strength, strategic administration, and psychological insight. His rule would not only consolidate Norman dominance, but also transform the political, social, and cultural fabric of England. Rebellion erupted quickly. In 1067 and the following years, English nobles in the north and southwest rose against Norman control. William responded decisively, personally leading campaigns to suppress insurrections. His approach combined overwhelming force with strategic displays of authority. Towns that resisted were punished harshly, while loyal lords were rewarded with land, titles, and positions of influence. The balance of fear and reward reinforced obedience and discouraged further rebellion. To project authority across England, William initiated a comprehensive program of castle building, from the iconic Motte Bailey fortresses to massive stone keeps. These structures were both defensive and symbolic. Castles served as military strongpoints, administrative centers, and visual reminders of Norman power. Strategically placed, they allowed William to maintain control over key territories and routes, while enabling rapid deployment of troops to quell uprisings. William also reorganized the English aristocracy. Land previously held by Anglo-Saxon nobles was redistributed to his Norman followers. This feudal system ensured loyalty, as all landholders owed military service and allegiance directly to the king, while displacement of native elites caused resentment. It secured William's control and laid the foundation for a centralized governance system. The new aristocracy, bound to the crown through obligation and reward, became the backbone of Norman administration. The integration of Norman and Anglo-Saxon systems was essential. William retained elements of existing English law and governance while introducing Norman practices. Sheriffs, courts, and taxation systems were restructured to reflect his authority. Administrative reforms allowed for more efficient governance, better collection of revenues, and enhanced control over local communities. William understood that stability required both enforcement and adaptation, blending conquest with pragmatic administration. William's rule was marked by a ruthless understanding of human nature. He recognized that rebellion stemmed not only from ambition, but also from fear and opportunity. His campaigns often combined psychological tactics with military action, demonstrating decisiveness, punishing resistance publicly, and rewarding loyalty conspicuously. This dual approach reinforced the perception of Norman invincibility and created an environment where submission was both logical and advantageous. Beyond military and administrative measures, William maintained strong diplomatic relations with neighboring powers. His rule in England had implications for Normandy, France, and the broader European stage. Alliances, marriages, and negotiations ensured that William's authority was respected, and potential threats were mitigated. His ability to manage domestic governance while projecting power internationally demonstrated a unique combination of strategic foresight and practical leadership. Religion also played a central role in consolidating authority. William cultivated close ties with the church, installing Norman clergy in key positions and reforming English dioceses. Ecclesiastical support enhanced the legitimacy of his rule, provided moral justification for his conquest, and helped integrate the English population into the new governance structure. The church became both a partner and instrument of Norman authority, reinforcing loyalty and social order. By the late 1070s, William had largely pacified England, though occasional uprisings persisted. His combination of military enforcement, administrative organization, and strategic alliances created a kingdom under firm Norman control. The monarchy had emerged as the central authority, linking regions through governance, loyalty, and feudal obligation. England's political landscape had been irrevocably transformed, reflecting William's vision of centralized, disciplined, and authoritative rule. William's early years as king demonstrated the full range of his leadership. He was a military commander, strategist, administrator, and psychological tactician. His rule combined ruthlessness with pragmatism, fear with reward, and tradition with innovation. By suppressing rebellion, restructuring society, and consolidating power, William laid the foundations for a stable, centralized monarchy that would endure for centuries. By the end of Part 5, William had not only survived the conquest, but had transformed England into a kingdom firmly under Norman control. The combination of military strength, feudal organization, and administrative innovation reflected his unparalleled skill as a ruler. William's early reign in England showcased his ability to convert conquests into lasting governance, solidifying his legacy as a king who reshaped an entire nation. By the 1080s, William had secured his rule over England, but knew that maintaining control required more than military power. He needed systems that could govern, assess, and sustain his kingdom long-term. The Domesday Survey, commissioned in 1085, became a cornerstone of William's domestic policia, meticulous record of landholdings, resources, and obligations across England. Its purpose went beyond taxation. It was a tool to understand the distribution of power, enforce feudal obligations, and maintain control over his new kingdom. Every manor, every village, and every holder of land was accounted for, providing the crown with unparalleled insight into England's wealth and structure. The survey reflected William's methodical approach to governance. He recognized that authority depended on knowledge as much as force. With accurate records, he could ensure that taxes were collected, obligations enforced, and rebellion deterred. The Domesday Book represented not only administrative genius, but also psychological control. It reinforced the king as presence in every corner of the realm, demonstrating that no land or lord could escape his oversight. Cultural integration was another crucial aspect of William's strategy. Norman customs, language, and law began to overlay English traditions. Castles were built not just for defense, but as centers of governance, asserting Norman presence visually and administratively. Churches were reconstructed or replaced under Norman direction, reflecting both religious devotion and the consolidation of cultural influence. William understood that conquest was incomplete without shaping the society it ruled. Integrating Normans and English into a functional, hierarchical system ensured stability and loyalty. William also reformed the legal and administrative framework of England. Sheriffs were appointed to manage local affairs, dispense justis, and collect taxes. Courts combined elements of English customary law with Norman innovations, creating a hybrid system that reinforced royal authority. This legal framework strengthened the monarchy's presence throughout England, allowing for centralized control without necessitating constant military enforcement. The crown's authority became codified, predictable, and formidable. The king maintained control through a careful balance of fear and reward. Loyal nobles were granted lands, titles, and privileges, binding them to the crown through personal obligation and mutual interests. Rebels were met with decisive retaliation. Rebellions were crushed, leaders executed or exiled, and lands confiscated. This combination of carrot and stick ensured that loyalty was pragmatic, obedience was reinforced, and the consequences of resistance were clear. William's reputation as both just and ruthless created a climate of respect and deterrence. Religion reinforced governance and cultural integration. William installed Norman bishops and abbots across England, consolidating ecclesiastical loyalty and ensuring the church supported royal policy. Monastic reforms encouraged adherence to new cultural norms, while churches and cathedrals became symbols of Norman authority and piety. Religious institutions provided not only moral legitimacy, but also administrative assistance, helping enforce laws, educate the population, and maintain records crucial to governance. William also recognized the importance of infrastructure in consolidating power. Roads, bridges, and fortified towns facilitated military movement, communication, and trade. These improvements not only enhanced efficiency, but also symbolized the reach of the monarchy, demonstrating that Norman authority extended into every corner of England. Castles became administrative hubs, centers of law, and visual reminders of the king's dominance, ensuring that authority was both practical and psychological. Education and literacy, especially within the clergy and administration, further supported integration. Normans brought administrative expertise and record-keeping skills, improving governance and standardizing procedures. This professionalized bureaucracy allowed William to oversee a kingdom vastly larger than Normandy alone, reinforcing centralized control while maintaining local oversight. Knowledge became a key instrument of power, complementing military strength and political authority. By the late 1080s, William's policies had transformed England into a tightly governed, centralized kingdom. Military, administrative, religious, and cultural systems were interlinked, creating a stable environment under Norman authority. The Doomsday Survey, castles, legal reforms, and ecclesiastical alignment were all tools to project power, enforce loyalty, and integrate society. William's vision of a cohesive, disciplined, and hierarchical kingdom was coming to fruition. By the end of Part 6, William had moved beyond mere conquest to establish lasting governance. England was no longer a patchwork of rebellious regions and feudal enclaves. It was a kingdom under the firm control of a monarch whose combination of military skill, administrative genius, and cultural foresight ensured stability and loyalty. William's domestic policies would influence the structure of English monarchy for centuries, demonstrating that conquest required both force and wisdom to create enduring rule. As William's reign stabilized in England, attention turned to family and succession. A king who had conquered a kingdom needed heirs to secure his legacy and ensure the continuity of Norman rule. William and Matilda of Flanders had several children, whose marriages, alliances, and positions were carefully managed to strengthen both domestic stability and international influence. The future of England, Normandy, and the broader Norman dynasty rested on these calculated familial strategies. William's eldest son, Robert Curthose, was groomed to inherit Normandy, while his second son, William Rufus, was designated to succeed in England. This division of power reflected William's understanding of governance, ambition, and potential rivalries. By assigning authority and territories, he sought to prevent internal conflict while reinforcing the family's dominance across multiple regions. Succession planning was not just practical, it was a strategic exercise in ensuring loyalty, balancing power, and consolidating the dynasty's reach. The king's daughters also played critical roles in diplomacy. Strategic marriages to continental nobles extended William's influence across France and neighboring territories. These unions strengthened alliances, deterred potential adversaries, and created a network of familial loyalty that reinforced his authority beyond England. William's vision of family as a tool of political strategy highlighted his ability to intertwine personal life with state, ensuring that his dynasty wielded influence across Europe. Foreign relations were equally important. William maintained a careful balance with the French crown, Normandy's nominal overlord. While paying homage when necessary, he acted independently, pursuing policies that advanced Norman and English interests. His military and diplomatic strategies ensured that Normandy remained secure, England remained loyal, and continental rivals were managed with precision. William's ability to navigate these complex relationships demonstrated a blend of pragmatism, ambition, and foresight. William also faced challenges from neighboring rulers and potential invaders. Scandinavian powers, including Norway and Denmark, posed intermittent threats to England. William's decisive military responses, combined with intelligence, gathering, and strategic fortifications, secured the kingdom against these challenges. By projecting strength and demonstrating preparedness, he deterred further aggression and reinforced the legitimacy of his reign. Within England, William used family members to maintain control over key regions. Trusted sons, loyal relatives, and appointed Norman nobles oversaw territories, ensuring that the crown's authority extended across the kingdom. This delegation of power was carefully monitored. Loyalty was enforced through rewards, military presence, and oversight. William's approach blended personal trust with political strategy, maintaining centralized authority while managing a sprawling and diverse kingdom. William's relationship with the church continued to reinforce both domestic and foreign influence. Papal recognition legitimized his reign, while ecclesiastical officials advised on governance and diplomacy. Monasteries and cathedrals were centers of learning, administration, and culture, bridging Norman and English traditions. By aligning the monarchy with religious authority, William enhanced both legitimacy and moral influence, ensuring that the crown's power was recognized across political and spiritual spheres. As William aged, succession planning became increasingly urgent. He sought to secure a smooth transition, preventing civil war, and ensuring that his descendants would continue to enforce Norman dominance in both England and Normandy. While internal rivalries among his children occasionally caused tension, the king's authority and foresight maintained order. His careful management of family, land, and alliances exemplified a long-term vision, where conquest was reinforced by governance, dynasty, and strategy. William's reign also left a lasting impact on European politics. Normandy and England became closely connected through personal and political ties, creating a power bloc that influenced continental affairs. The redistribution of land, the strategic marriages of his children, and the integration of Norman and English institutions shaped diplomacy, trade, and military alliances across Western Europe. William's vision extended beyond immediate conquest to the creation of a network of influence that would endure long after his death. By the end of Part 7, William had solidified not only his kingdom but also his dynasty. Through careful succession planning, strategic marriages, and astute diplomacy, he ensured that the Norman legacy would continue. His family became a cornerstone of political power, reinforcing alliances, projecting influence across Europe, and maintaining control over England. William's combination of military genius, administrative foresight, and familial strategy created a model of rulership that balanced conquest, governance, and long-term legacy. Her reign, spanning more than 6 decades, had seen Britain transformed from a European power into the center of a vast global empire. She left behind a legacy of stability, moral authority, and cultural influence that shaped not only the monarchy but the modern British state itself. The Royal Navy, maritime trade routes, and technological advances underpinned this supremacy, ensuring that the empire remained cohesive, resilient, and influential. Her reign had not been without struggle. Rebellions, uprisings, and international competition tested the monarchy's authority and adaptability. The Indian Rebellion of 1857, African resistance, and tensions in Europe challenged the crown, requiring strategic response, cultural sensitivity, and moral guidance. Their childrenless marriages into European royal families created diplomatic alliances that expanded Britain's influence without warfare, demonstrating the strategic power of personal and family networks. Even after Albert's death, Victoria's adherence to duty, her engagement with family, and her moral example reinforced the monarchy's symbolic and practical authority. Culturally, Victoria's reign set the tone for a century of British identity. The Queen's personal engagement with cultural life demonstrated the monarchy's ability to shape national values while inspiring loyalty and admiration. The careful coordination of colonial administration, combined with symbolic authority and strategic influence, allowed the empire to endure across continents. The monarchy under Victoria became an institution that balanced visibility with ceremonial authority, influence with restraint. Victoria's legacy is also evident in the way the modern British monarchy operates. The monarchy's symbolic power, ceremonial and involvement in charitable initiatives reflect traditions shaped and reinforced during her reign. Ultimately, Queen Victoria shaped an empire and a monarchy that could endure challenges, adapt to change, and project influence across the globe. Her reign balanced personal duty, family, domestic governance, and global oversight, creating a system of authority, both resilient and respected. Victoria's life marked by triumphs, struggles, moral conviction, and cultural leadership offers a blueprint for the integration of power, responsibility, and symbolic authority, ensuring that Britain's monarchy remained central to national identity and international presence. Queen Victoria's era, the Victorian Age, was defined by industrial progress, cultural refinement, imperial expansion, and moral consciousness. The empire she helped build, and the monarchy she strengthened, continued to influence the world long after her death, cementing her place as one of history's most consequential sovereigns. In conclusion, Queen Victoria's life was a testament to the enduring power of vision, duty, and moral leadership. As William entered the final decade of his life, his reign was marked by reflection, vigilance, and continued consolidation of power. England was no longer a fragile, conquered land. It had been transformed into a kingdom governed by a strong monarchy, disciplined nobility, and integrated administrative systems. Normandy remained secure, while alliances across Europe bolstered the dynasty's influence. Yet William remained ever watchful, understanding that the stability of his legacy depended on preparation, authority, and the careful management of family and politics. Even in his later years, William was active in governance. He continued to oversee castle construction, monitor rebellious regions, and manage disputes among nobles. He maintained strict control over land redistribution and feudal obligations, ensuring that loyalty to the crown remained paramount. William's presence, whether in councils, military campaigns, or ceremonial occasions, reinforced the perception of invincible authority. His rule demonstrated that power was sustained not only by conquest, but through constant engagement and strategic oversight. Family continued to play a central role in William's final years. Robert Courtois, his eldest, ruled Normandy, while William Rufus managed England as heir apparent. Tensions occasionally arose between the brothers, reflecting the challenges inherent in dynastic governance. Yet William's authority maintained balance. Strategic marriages of his children strengthened continental alliances, reinforcing the reach and influence of the Norman dynasty. William's vision of a dynasty that spanned regions and reinforced loyalty through kinship had been realized. Domestically, William's policies had transformed England. The feudal system ensured centralized authority, while the Domesday Survey continued to provide accurate records for governance, taxation, and military preparedness. Castles dotted the landscape, not only as military fortresses but as centers of administration and symbols of Norman authority. The integration of Norman and Anglo-Saxon practices created a society that combined local tradition with centralized control, blending coercion with pragmatism. William also remained engaged in diplomacy. Relations with the French crown, neighboring principalities, and the church required careful attention. Alliances were reinforced, treaties negotiated, and potential threats monitored. William's ability to manage external relations while governing two distinct territories, Normandy and England, demonstrated a level of strategic foresight rare among medieval rulers. His reign had created a foundation for both domestic stability and continental influence. In 1087, William faced his final campaign, quelling resistance in northern France. During this effort, he sustained injuries that would prove fatal. William died on September 9th, 1087, in Rouen, Normandy. His passing marked the end of a transformative reign. He was buried at Caen, in the abbey he had founded, a testament to his enduring influence and his role in shaping both secular and religious landscapes. William's legacy is profound and multifaceted. Militarily, he had demonstrated unparalleled strategic vision, culminating in the decisive victory at the Battle of Hastings. Politically, he had established a centralized, disciplined monarchy capable of maintaining control over England and Normandy. Administratively, his policies including the Domesday Survey, land redistribution, and legal reforms created enduring structures that shaped governance for centuries. Culturally, the integration of Norman and Anglo-Saxon traditions transformed England's identity, architecture, and social hierarchy. His dynasty continued to wield influence long after his death. William Rufus became King of England, while Robert Curthose ruled Normandy, and his other children were strategically positioned across Europe. The family's connections reinforced political and military alliances, ensuring that Norman authority extended beyond immediate territories. William's vision of a dynasty as both a tool of governance and a network of power had been fully realized. William's reign also reshaped the monarchy itself. He demonstrated that kingship required more than hereditary right. It demanded strategic foresight, military capability, administrative skill, and the capacity to manage complex social, political, and familial networks. His rule set a precedent for centralized authority, feudal oversight, and dynastic governance that influenced the English monarchy for generations. The monarchy he shaped endured through turbulent times, wars, and political evolution, continuing to serve as a symbol of continuity, authority, and strategic vision.